Want to keep up with the latest LEGO Maker 96.1 videos? Make sure to subscribe and ring that bell. Hello everyone, LEGO Maker 96.1 here with another video. And happy Juneteenth, everyone. Let's go over history, shall we? Hey, shut up! History is important! Now, those who don't know history are forever doomed to repeat it. Now, what I'm about to say, I want all of you to shut up and listen, okay? You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You listen twice as much as you talk. I'm going to say that again. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You listen twice as much as you talk.
You can say that again.
There you go. Now, the history of Juneteenth actually dates back to the year 1865, where General Gordon Granger and his Union forces told a bunch of African Americans in Texas that slavery is over. And that marked a big celebration in the state of Texas on the 19th of June of 1865. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation was issued in January of 1863, the first day of January, the new year. And this not only freed those was in rebel states in armed rebellion, but it also gave them the freedom to take up arms and fight against the Confederates. Now, yes, there was slavery in the United States. It was there since the founding of this nation. All right? It was there, and now it's gone. Remember that. And since then, many regiments of African American descent decided to wear the Union blue and take up arms and fight against the Confederates. Now, among the regiments that participated in the Civil War was none other than the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry Regiment. Now, these were an African American regiment that participated in the battles of Fort Wagner, Olustee, Honey Hill, and Borkins Mill. Now, this unit was made famous in artwork, songs, poetry, and the 1989 film called Glory, which I have seen, and I will talk about it near the end of the video. Okay? Now, the history of the 54th began in February when they started recruiting those who were willing to take up arms and fight against the Confederacy during the American Civil War. And yes, the war was fought over the institution of slavery and states' rights. Know your history. Okay? So there's that. Now, the colonel of the regiment, Robert Gould Shaw, was hesitant to take the command of the regiment, but eventually he came around and decided to say, hey, I'll do it. Now, he was joined by Norwood Hallowell and his younger brother, Edward Hallowell, who took command of the 54th throughout the rest of the war after Shaw was killed at Fort Wagner. Now, since the recruitment, men of the 54th started drilling how to handle their rifle, how to wear their uniforms properly, and how to counter against the Confederates. Now, they went out in May of '63 to Beaufort, South Carolina, to which they were part of the 10th Corps of the Department of the South. And these guys were part of the 10th Corps as shown here. Now, they're part of the 1st Division, 3rd Brigade. Now, this was at the time the United States adopted the Corps badge system. The 1st Division would be red, 2nd would be white, and third would be blue. Red, white, and blue, just like the flag. Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? But there's a bit of controversy before the 54th went out. And this was a problem until Congress gave them the $13 a month, which they were promised since they started to take up arms and fight in September of 64. See, when the 54th was formed, they were promised a regular army wage of $13 a month. But due to the color of their skin, they were paid $10, which was a joke, a slap in the face. And that's just wrong. I tell you, if I was colonel of an African American regiment and they were going to give me and my men $10 a month, I would just flat out refuse it, because there is no way my men would accept that kind of pay ever. Never. And I'm pretty sure Robert Shaw would agree with me on that. Now, as to the Department of the South, to which the 54th was a part of, they were to take part in the siege of taking Charleston Harbor. Because since the Civil War started there with the bombardment of Fort Sumter, they were to take that city and turn the tide of the war. Now, the 54th major engagement was at the Battle of Grimball's Landing, located on James Island. Now, if you've seen the movie Glory, the 54th held off a retreating Union regiment, the 10th Connecticut. Now, when they encountered the Confederates, not only they were engaged in a gunfight, but they were also engaged in hand-to-hand combat. Now, hand-to-hand combat at the time was usually musket butts, fighting knives, bayonets, swords, pistols, anything. Now, even though the 54th held off of the Confederates and sent them running, they lost 45% casualties. Now, their next engagement was a big one. Even though they were tired and footsore, they still carried out their duties as soldiers. They took part in Fort Wagner, and they would be the first to go into the fight. Now, under the cover of darkness, Shaw led his men forward, unafraid, unopposed, and started scaling the walls of Fort Wagner. Now, Shaw would die at Wagner, and Lieutenant Colonel Hallowell would take command of the regiment. Now, it was there that one soldier in particular in that fight would receive the Medal of Honor for his bravery at Fort Wagner, though he wouldn't get it until 1900, nearly 37 years after Wagner. 37 years, that's crazy. Now, before he would pass out from his injuries, he walked into the tent carrying the tattered flag of the regiment. He said, "Boys, I only did my duty. The old flag never touched the ground." Now, during the battle, Kearney from Company H would be wounded in both legs, his chest, and right arm. Now, the regiment was forced to withdraw under heavy fire, but still, they never gave up fighting. Many of the wounded from Wagner would return to the front, but they would never be the same. But half of those guys that were captured were sent to prison and were never exchanged, many of which have died in rebel prisons. But the bravery of what happened in Wagner was praised by the North, and it was even praised by the enemy. Yeah, even the Confederates praised the 54th. Nice to know they have a brain and a heart. But still, these guys would continue on fighting the war even without pay, which was a big problem for these guys back in Massachusetts, because even though they haven't received pay, many of them can't pay their taxes, they can't go out shopping, which was pretty cruel. well, and sad at the same time. But still, after gathering up their strength with new recruits, they continued on fighting at Olustee in Florida, Honey Hill, and Borkins Mill, with its sister regiment, the 55th Massachusetts, and many other African American regiments who took up arms after hearing the heroic effort of the 54th at Fort Wagner. Now, it was there in September of 1864, Congress finally took action and gave the men of the 54th their $13 a month, which they haven't received pay for 18 months. That is a long time. Now, even though Charleston would fall, even though the 54th marched in with the 55th, they found the Charleston jail empty. The prisoners were shipped elsewhere, but still, these guys carried on until the end of the war. Now, in August of 1865, the 54th was mustered out of service, they received their full pay and their pensions, and they were faded into history. But still, their legacy would carry on. Years after the war, many forms of media were made about the 54th. Artwork was made about them, songs were written about them, poetry was written about them, and even in the year 1989, Glory was made about the 54th. And I gotta say, I love the movie. It was phenomenal, and I loved every inch of that movie, and I loved learning about the 54th. Because these guys, they were badass. Even though they come from different backgrounds, these guys came together in a form of brotherhood. When it just goes to show not only they could stand and fight against the Confederates, it just goes to show that there are people too. I mean, we all bleed the same color. And in 2008, the 54th Massachusetts was reactivated, but as part of the Massachusetts Army Home Guard. These guys were formed in November of 2008, and the legacy of the 54th is still carried on. Now, for me, when I saw the movie Glory, I love it. Every bit of it. And the choreography was good, the effects were good, but the history about them was good. And I gotta tell you, Matthew Broderick, who played Robert Gould Shaw, Denzel Washington, who played Trip, Gary Elways, who played Gabbett Forbes, and Morgan Freeman as John Rollins, they did a phenomenal job in that movie. Now, if you were to ask me one of my favorite sequences in the movie, it would have to be Fort Wagner, hands friggin' down. Because everything about that engagement was stunning. Even though in real life it was tragic, but still, that scene in particular was phenomenal. The music, the effects, the choreography. It is just phenomenal. And even talking about it, it gives me goosebumps. Yeah, sorry about that. But still, we can't forget about the 54th, because these guys are heroes. And they will always be considered heroes. And now, I would like to give a moment of silence for the men of the 54th, the men of the 55th, and those men of the brave USETs who fought and died during the American Civil War. And, yeah. Also, watch the movie Glory. I highly recommend you watch it. It is really good. Oh, and word of advice, the N-word is heard throughout the entire movie. So if you hear it, do not repeat. If you do, that's on you. Alright? Fault's on you. Do not repeat. And, yeah, and that concludes today's video. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like this, and if you want to see many other videos I have done on my channel, please feel free to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to my channel, and turn on the bell notifications so that way you can be notified when I upload the next video. And as always, this is LEGO Maker 96-1, signing off.